You mentioned the physics of snow, and what are your favorite aspects or examples of this? I know we talked about the movie Frozen and some of the physics that went into that. Um, can you talk about that? I know you have a degree in physics.
Yeah, I would say that snow physics is relatively complex. We kind of know a lot of the energy forces that work on snow and the result of those, but uh, predicting exactly where and when in the snowpack those are going to occur can be very challenging. So when we look at kind of the energy distribution through a snowpack, it varies a lot on the snowpack that lies on north-facing terrain that's in the shade versus snow that's in the sun. Um, and one of the really vexing problems, I would say, in snow hydrology is how liquid water runs through these complex snowpacks. When we have liquid water in a snowpack, we call it free water. And when we have rainstorms or significant melt, we can make predictions on how much water might be generated by the melt, but exactly where it shows up in the snowpack is still has not been successfully modeled, and we're unable to predict that. And this is a real player with avalanches that release due to warm weather or rainstorms. And there's also kind of the grain scale physics that go on in the snowpack, which are very fascinating to how the crystals, once they fall from the sky in a snowstorm and becomes part of the snowpack, how they change. And that's driven by really the energy profile through the snowpack, which in a sense is the temperature of the profile, the temperature of the snowpack. And so like all physical phenomena where we have areas that are warmer in the snowpack, they want to give off their heat to areas that are colder. So we see that energy flux go from the warm to the less warm, and that drives vapor that flows through the ice lattice, the open pore space in the ice lattice, and recrystallizes certain crystal types. And sometimes those crystals, when they recrystallize, they do not bond to each other. They bond poorly, and they can become a increasing weakness in the snowpack, which is then responsible for future avalanches. One thing that Milo referred to is I know most of you have probably seen the movie Frozen, the Disney movie Frozen, and there were several snow scientists consulted before that movie was made on what they should do and not to do. And one thing you'll notice, or maybe you haven't noticed from that movie, is that all the snow crystals that are depicted in that movie have 6 branches, and that's how snow crystals form. There's no such thing as an 8-branched snow crystal or a 5-branch snow crystal. So even though you may have gotten Christmas cards this past season that have all this various graphic design, that's a kind of physical impossibility in the snow world. And also, every ice crystal has to have a solid center. There's no such thing as a newly formed crystal with a hollow center. That's also a physical property of how they form.